Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. That's too sweet. Anyway, continuing with retired numbers. And today, we're going to talk about the third number retired by the Dallas Stars. And, well, technically, this is the first number retired by the team in Dallas. So, it's really, the first two numbers were retired in Minnesota by the Minnesota North Stars and just carried over after the franchise relocated to Dallas. But anyway, this one does have more history in Minnesota than it does in Dallas, but the topic of today did play, the first two seasons in Dallas after the move, so that's got to count for something. But he's also from Minnesota to boot. But anyway, without this guy in the lineup, it's hard to say where the Minnesota North Stars would have been in the 80s and 90s without a guy like him. So today, we're talking about the number 7, which was worn by Neal Broten. Let's talk about it. Alright, so Broten's 16 seasons with the Stars franchise began on August 9th, 1979, when Broten was selected 42nd overall in the 1979 NHL entry draft. I mean, being selected number 42 in probably the best draft class in NHL history, that's impressive in itself. Now initially, the number 42 pick belonged to the Edmonton Oilers, but they traded it to the Minnesota North Stars for Dave Semenko, returning him back to the Oilers franchise after they had lost him in the immediate expansion draft after the WHA merger. Now, Broten wouldn't debut with the team until late in the 1980-81 season, and he did score his first goal in his first NHL game against the St. Louis Blues on March 31st. So that's awesome. And in the regular season games that he did play, all 3 of them, he managed to score 1 more goal for a total of 2 on the year, which is alright for your first 3 games. He did, however, stick around for the North Stars' 1981 playoff run. That's where, the North Stars would beat the Bruins in 3 games, then beat the Buffalo Sabres in 5 games, and then dispose of the Calgary Flames in 6 games to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in franchise history. Unfortunately for the North Stars, though, they went up against the reigning and defending Stanley Cup champs in the New York Islanders, who were busy starting their dynasty, and, well, you know how these things go. The New York Islanders were just too much, ended up disposing of the North Stars in 5 games, with Broten contributing 8 points in the 19 playoff games he did play. It's not a bad debut, even though the bulk of it was played in a pressure situation in the Stanley Cup Finals, but hey, any experience is good experience, right? The 1981-82 season would be Broten's first full season in Minnesota, and you can call this his rookie season. And he certainly didn't disappoint, as Broten would add 98 points in 73 games, including a career-best 38 goals, as the Minnesota North Stars would finish first in the North Division. And, being with those numbers, those 98 points and 38 goals would turn into Minnesota North Stars franchise records for most by a rookie in their rookie season. So there's that. Now, being they did place first in the North Division and are coming off of a lengthy extended playoff run from the season before, the North Stars were heavily favored to go far in the playoffs, but they ended up losing in 4 games in the North Division semifinals to the Chicago Blackhawks, with Broten adding only 2 assists in those 4 games. It comes and goes just as quick, right? The 1982-83 season would see Broten score his first NHL hat-trick of his career, doing so on November 23rd, 1982, in an 8-8 tie against the New York Islanders, because they had ties back then, if you can remember that. It would also be a year where Broten would join a very small list, in which he would be one of the very few people in league history to have a quote-unquote fight with one Wayne Gretzky, as that very rarely ever happened. And Broten would also play his first of 2 NHL All-Star games in 1983. Now, the North Stars would finish second in the North Division, with Broten adding 77 points in 79 games, which tied for the team lead. Now, in the playoffs, the North Stars would eliminate the Toronto Maple Leafs in the North Division semifinals in 4 games, before losing to the Chicago Blackhawks in 5, with Broten adding 7 points in 9 playoff games. The 1983-84 season would see the North Stars get back to being a dominant team, finishing first in the North Division with Broten adding a team-leading 89 points in 76 games, which also included a team-leading 61 assists. And again, heavily favored entering the playoffs, the North Stars would eliminate the Chicago Blackhawks in 5 games in the North Division semifinals, then eliminate the St. Louis Blues in a full 7 games to meet the Edmonton Oilers in the Campbell Conference Finals. Now, unfortunately for the North Stars, they were meeting, they're merely a footnote in the point of history in this one, as they would run into the eventual Stanley Cup champs as the Edmonton Oilers started the road to their own dynasty, eliminating the North Stars in 4 straight games, with Broten adding 10 points in 16 games. The 1984-85 season would see Broten play a full 80-game schedule for the first time in his career, but it would also see his production do a dip below the norm of the last few seasons, with Broten only adding 56 points, as the North Stars would finish 4th in the North Division. Only 56 points. North Stars would make the playoffs and be quick, and instead of doing the opposite of quickly being eliminated, they would quickly eliminate the St. Louis Blues in 3 games before being eliminated by the Chicago Blackhawks in 6, with Broten adding 7 points in 9 playoff games. The 1985-86 season would probably be Broten's best season, and also see him play in his second and last NHL All-Star game. Now, Minnesota would finish second in the North Division, with Broten leading the team with a career-best 105 points, including a team-leading and a career-best and a franchise record 76 assists. Now, his 105 points will also be not only 10th in league scoring, but it would also be the first time in league history an American-born player would record 100-plus points in a season. Now, it's been done many times since, but Broten was first. And while the North Stars would make the playoffs, they'd be eliminated by the St. Louis Blues in 5 games, with Broten going a point per game in those 5 games. Now, the 1986-87 season would probably be a season to forget, as early in the season, Broten would go out with a shoulder injury after a bad fall into the boards in a game against the Detroit Red Wings. And that was essentially him being done for the season, putting up 53 points in 46 games. Now, he was over a point per game before the injury, so you can imagine what he would have been able to do if he wasn't injured. The 1987-88 season was supposed to be a return to form for Broten. However, 1 game after the All-Star break, he would see himself being injured yet again, and yet again being out for the season, with Broten adding only 39 points in 54 games. Now, I also see the North Stars finish 21st overall in the NHL, and back in 1988, there were only 21 teams in the league, so 21st overall meant you finished last, which was enough for the Minnesota North Stars to get their future face of the franchise, and I guarantee you at some point in the future a topic of video in Mike Modano. The 1988-89 season would see Minnesota get back to being a playoff contending team after missing them for the previous 2 seasons, and also see Broten transition to a more two-way kind of game, while also contributing 56 points in 68 games. Now, it would be worth noting that Broten also scored his only penalty shot goal in his NHL career on April 8, 1989, against the St. Louis Blues. And while the North Stars did make the playoffs, they'd make another quick 5-game exit thanks to the St. Louis Blues, who are becoming the thorn in the side, with Broten adding 4 points in those 5 games. The 1989-90 season saw Broten be named an alternate captain of the Minnesota North Stars, and also see Broten pass the 80-plus point mark for the last time in his career, when he put up 85 points in a full 80-game schedule. Now, this would also be the last time he would play in a full schedule. Now, again, the North Stars would make the playoffs, and again, were eliminated in a very close 7 games against the Chicago Blackhawks, with Broten adding only 4 points. The 1990-91 season would be one of the most surprising seasons, probably for the Minnesota North Stars, and even if the result wasn't exactly as desired, if it was the complete opposite of the way most it could have been, you could call this probably Minnesota's best year. Now, the North Stars would finish fourth in the North Division, making the playoffs with a losing record. Got to remember, the North Division at this time was a very weak division, so a lot of teams made the playoffs with a losing record because the 4 teams in every division automatically went to the playoffs. But another story. Now, being an underdog, according to many of the quote-unquote experts, the North Stars weren't expected to make the hugest of differences in these playoffs, but the North Stars did manage to eliminate the Blackhawks in 6 before facing and eliminating the St. Louis Blues in 6 to face the Edmonton Oilers in the Campbell Conference Finals again. Now, what a lot of those experts would call an upset, those same experts, the North Stars eliminated the defending Stanley Cup champs en route to the Stanley Cup Finals for the second time in franchise history. Unfortunately, though, they were coming into the Stanley Cup Finals to play the Pittsburgh Penguins, who were more than determined to make their mark in the history of the NHL, and, well, they did, as Pittsburgh proved to obviously be way too much for the underdog North Stars, being eliminated in 6 games, very close 6 games, I might add, with Broten putting up career bests in the playoffs, right across the board, with 23 games played, 9 goals, 13 assists, and 22 points. So, again, while it was the complete opposite of what would have been a great season, it was still productive. The 1991-92 season would see a lot of change in Minnesota, and not just with the brand identity, but also with players coming in and going out, thanks in large part to the 1991 expansion and dispersal drafts. But thankfully, Broten was protected from both. Unfortunately for Broten, though, his productivity would really start to be on the decline once again, with Broten contributing only 34 points in 76 games. And while the North Stars did make the playoffs, they'd be eliminated in a heartbreaking 7-game series versus the Detroit Red Wings, with Broten adding 6 points in those 7 games. The 1992-93 season would be the last season for the Minnesota North Stars, and despite the North Stars putting up the better record than the 91-92 season, having 4 30-goal scorers on the team, and finishing the season 2 games under 500, the North Stars would fail to make the playoffs, with Broten adding only 33 points in 82 games. Then on March 10th, 1993, it was announced that the Minnesota North Stars would be moving to Texas to become the Dallas Stars for the 1993-94 season. And with that, the Stars became the first NHL franchise to relocate since the Colorado Rockies when they moved to New Jersey. So in that first season in Dallas, the NHL would realign the divisions and the conferences, and the Dallas Stars would be placed in the Central Division of the Western Conference, which was almost the same kind of scene as the Norris Division. But I digress. The Stars would finish 3rd in the Central Division to advance to the playoffs, with Broten adding 52 points in 79 games. Now in the playoffs, the Stars would sweep the St. Louis Blues in the Western Conference Finals before being eliminated in 5 games by eventual Stanley Cup finalists, the Vancouver Canucks, with Broten adding 3 points in 9 games. And just like that, we have a lockout. Now, unlike the big one, and a lot like the 2012-2013 lockout, the first NHL lockout was solved in enough time to still play a 48-game schedule. On a positive note, Broten would be named the team captain on January 18, 1995, after the Stars traded previous captain Mark Tenorti to the Washington Capitals. Now, for Broten, this would be a position that would only last 17 games before he himself was traded to the New Jersey Devils for Corey Millen. Now, Broten would only contribute 4 assists in those 17 games. And this should be where our story ends. But it doesn't. So after playing some time in New Jersey, which included a Stanley Cup clinching goal and a cup of coffee in LA, Broten would get picked up off waivers by the Dallas Stars on January 28, 1997, as the Stars would finish first in the Central Division, and we're really going all in on the playoffs this year. Now, Broten would add 15 points in 20 games, back with the Dallas Stars, and despite the Stars' dominance, the playoffs are usually always a completely other story. They would lose in Game 7 overtime against the Edmonton Oilers, with Broten only adding 1 assist in 2 playoff games. So that's heartbreaking. And after the Stars' latest playoff exit, this would be the point where Neal Broten would announce his retirement from the NHL. And that is where we can end this one. So let's talk about some numbers. Alright, so with the North Stars / Stars franchise, in 992 games played, Broten would score 274 goals, 593 assists for 867 points. And in 115 playoff games, he'd score 28 goals, add 51 assists for 79 career playoff points. Broten would play in 2 NHL All-Star games in 1983 and 1986. Now, as far as the North Stars are concerned, he's still the franchise leader in points and assists. But in terms of the franchise, the North Stars franchise combined, he's still third in points and second in assists all time, as far as North Stars / Stars are concerned. As far as team records go, he has the most assists in a season with 76, which he did in 1985-86. And he has the rookie records for most goals and points by rookie, with 38 and 98 respectively. They did in 81-82. With his number being retired on February 7th, 1998. Third number and the first retired in Dallas. So here's my opinion. It's almost a shame he didn't have 2 more years left in him when he decided to retire, because it would have been nice to see him actually get the cup in Dallas. The guy was a hell of a producer. When it came to setting up the play, he could do that. If he needed the points, he can get you the points. I mean, he could obviously score well into the 30s. He could guarantee you 20 at least a year. But as far as an assist man, a point man goes, he's your guy. I mean, obviously, when it came to playing in Minnesota, if it weren't for guys like Bobby Smith, Dino Ciccarelli, Craig Hartsburg, or even a very young Kevin and or Darian Hatcher, it's hard to say where without Broten the North Stars would have been. But that transition into Dallas, bringing his experience as a big-time player and actually getting to serve as the captain, did wonders for the transition. But great player, great player. I miss watching his speed. I miss watching his hands. Fun to watch, all the same. It's another one of them Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. And if you have made it to this point, and you haven't done so yet, give me that thumbs up. Even if you're just saying, hey, you just want to tell me, hey, you're digging what I'm doing, I'm down for that. Give me a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm so much. If you want to, if you haven't done so yet, there's that red button that says subscribe all over it. Come on, you know you wanna. I know I want you to. We're halfway there. We're finally halfway to 500. So if we can get the other 250, that'd be great. To everybody that's come along for the ride, though, thank you very much. I do appreciate you. Link to my Facebook page in the description below. Moving forward, as far as retired numbers is concerned, I'm well set up for the rest of the year. I have a schedule that I'm going to operate on, and I'm not going to tell you what's next, but just know we're going to catch up this retired numbers thing in a quick hurry. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be looking for more videos from Trev. Later.